90 minutes were not enough. Extra time was not enough. And so it all came down to 12 yards and one nerve-shredded moment in the Massachusetts night. Jonathan Tah stepped up, a four-time World Cup nation on his shoulders, the whole weight of German football history behind him, and he struck the ball so far over the crossbar that it seemed to disappear into the New England sky. Seconds later, Jose Canale buried his penalty past Manuel Neuer, and it was done. Paraguay had knocked Germany out of the 2026 World Cup. The four-time champions were going home in the round of 32, and for the first time in their entire history, Germany had lost a World Cup penalty shootout. The unthinkable had happened. A team ranked among the best in the world, packed with players from Bayern Munich and Liverpool and Arsenal, had been outlasted, out-organized, and finally outnerved by a Paraguay side that almost nobody outside of Asunción gave a chance. This was not a fluke. This was not simply a bad night at the office. This was the product of very specific failures, tactical, structural, and psychological, that had been building for years and finally came crashing down on one summer evening in Foxborough. In this video, we break down exactly what went wrong for Germany against Paraguay. Why a team that dominated the ball could not create real chances. Why Nagelsmann had no answer to a wall of 10 defenders. Why the goal they conceded exposed a flaw that had been hiding all tournament. Stay until the end, because the real story here is not just one match. It is a decade of decline that Paraguay simply held up a mirror to. But first, you have to understand what Germany thought they were walking into, because on paper, this was supposed to be routine. Germany arrived at the 2026 World Cup as one of the favorites. Not the favorite, but firmly in the conversation. Julian Nagelsmann had spent nearly 3 years rebuilding this squad, and the results in qualifying had been convincing. 5 wins from 6 matches. A group topped with room to spare. A sense for the first time in years that Die Mannschaft were dangerous again. The squad had genuine star power. Florian Wirtz, ranked by many as the best attacking midfielder on the planet, finally making his World Cup debut. Jamal Musiala, back from a serious leg injury, still one of the most unpredictable dribblers alive. Joshua Kimmich, the captain, over 100 caps, pulling the strings from right back. And in goal, a story that captured the imagination of the whole country. Manuel Neuer, 40 years old, the last surviving member of the 2014 winning team, coming out of international retirement for one final tournament. The man orchestrating it all was Julian Nagelsmann, once the boy wonder of European coaching. The youngest manager in Bundesliga history when he took over Hoffenheim at 28, a Champions League coach at 31, a Bundesliga title winner with Bayern Munich. Nagelsmann built his reputation on 2 ideas: dominate the ball and press ferociously the instant you lose it. In theory, it was the perfect modern blueprint. In practice, it would run headfirst into a problem it could not solve. But even before a ball was kicked in the knockouts, the cracks were showing. Serge Gnabry, a proven tournament performer, had been left out of the squad through injury. Lennart Karl, the 18-year-old prodigy some were already comparing to the best in the world, tore a muscle just days before the tournament and never made it. And during the group stage, Nico Schlotterbeck suffered a tournament-ending injury, forcing Nagelsmann to reshuffle a defense that was supposed to be one of the team's great strengths. This was a squad already patched together before it ever ran into Paraguay. Then there was the group stage, which only strengthened the belief. Germany topped Group E ahead of Côte d'Ivoire, Ecuador, and Curaçao. They looked organized, they looked hungry, they looked like a team that had finally put the ghosts of the past behind them. And that is the crucial word here: the past. Because for all the optimism, there was a shadow hanging over this German team that no amount of qualifying wins could fully erase. In 2018, the defending champions crashed out in the group stage. In 2022, they crashed out in the group stage again. 2 consecutive World Cups, 2 humiliating early exits, for a nation that had never before failed to reach the knockouts in back-to-back tournaments. So the round of 32 against Paraguay was framed as the moment. The moment Germany would prove they were back. The moment the pattern would finally be broken. Instead, the pattern got worse, because standing in their way was a team built to do exactly one thing, and they did it better than anyone imagined. Paraguay came into this match as heavy underdogs, 5-1 by most bookmakers. Their group stage had been unconvincing on the surface. They opened with a 4-1 thrashing at the hands of the co-hosts, the United States. If you only looked at the numbers, you would have written them off completely. But Gustavo Alfaro, their coach, had built something specific, something stubborn, something almost impossible to break. After that opening loss to the United States, Paraguay transformed into one of the most disciplined defensive units in the entire tournament. And that night told you everything about their character, because after going a man down, their opponents launched something like 32 attempts on their goal and still could not score. Paraguay simply threw themselves in front of everything. They drew 0-0 with Australia without making a single meaningful mistake. And they scraped out of the group not through flair, but through sheer organization and will. Alfaro had been criticized for those tactics. Too negative, people said, too defensive, no ambition. But rather than back away from it against the four-time champions, he doubled down. He looked at Germany, at all that possession, at all that individual brilliance, and he made a decision that would define the match. He was not going to try to match them. He was going to suffocate them. From the opening whistle, Paraguay set up in a tight, compact 4-4-2. They sat deep. They kept 11 players behind the ball almost constantly, and they left Germany with barely any space to work through the middle of the pitch. But here is what made it so effective, and this is the part that so many people missed. This was not just parking the bus. This was not 11 men hiding in their own box hoping to survive. This was intelligent, coordinated, thinking, defending. Depending on where the ball was, certain Paraguay players would step forward to press while the others held their shape. Then they would rotate. The presser would drop back and a teammate would step up. The lines never broke. The gap between their midfield and their defense stayed impossibly small, game long, giving Germany no room to receive the ball in dangerous areas. Paraguay made a calculated gamble. They were happy to let Germany have the ball out wide. They dared them to do something with it, because they had studied this German team and they had spotted the weakness. Germany, they believed, could not switch the ball quickly from one side to the other. Germany could not dribble through a crowded maze of bodies, and Germany did not have the kind of ruthless, direct threat that punishes a deep block. They were right on all three counts. And that is where the story of this match really begins. Not with the goals, not with the penalties, but with the slow, grinding realization, minute by minute, that Germany had no idea how to solve the problem in front of them. The first half told you everything. Germany had the ball, constantly. They passed it around the edges of the Paraguay block, side to side, back to front, searching for an opening that simply was not there. The possession numbers were lopsided. The territory was one-sided. To a casual viewer flipping past, it might have looked like Germany were in total control. They were not. Because possession without penetration is one of the great illusions in football. You can have 70% of the ball and be losing badly if all that ball is doing is going nowhere. And that is exactly what was happening. Germany were passing themselves into a dead end, over and over again. Wirtz would drop deep to get on the ball. Musiala would drift inside looking for a pocket. But every time they turned to face the goal, they saw the same thing. A wall. 4 defenders, 4 midfielders, all tucked in, all communicating, all refusing to be pulled out of position. And so Germany did the only thing left to them, and they tried to cross their way through the problem. But this played directly into Paraguay's hands. Every ball into the box floated into a forest of defenders who were tall, aggressive, and desperate to head it clear. Germany did not have a giant target man to win those duels. So the crosses came in, and the crosses were cleared, and the cycle began all over again. Sideways, wide, cross, clear. Sideways, wide, cross, clear. It was possession as a hamster wheel. Germany's best chances of the entire first half told the story perfectly. Felix Nemeka had an effort that took a deflection and skidded behind for a corner. Kimmich struck a shot from distance that Orlando Gil, the Paraguay goalkeeper, saved comfortably. That was it. That was the sum total of a half in which Germany supposedly dominated. Nothing that truly tested a keeper winning his 10th cap for his country. And the longer it stayed level, the more the frustration built. You could see it in the body language. The heavy touches, the rushed passes, the little arguments about who should have made which run. Germany were being lulled into exactly the game Paraguay wanted them to play. Slow, sideways, sterile, and then, right before halftime, the underdogs did what underdogs dream of doing. They landed the sucker punch. The goal was a masterclass in everything Germany got wrong. It started with Paraguay winning the ball deep in their own attacking half through Damian Bobadilla, a midfielder whose tournament had begun in disaster with an own goal against the United States. From there, the move flowed with a speed and purpose that Germany simply had not shown all half. Bobadilla found Miguel Almiron out on the right. Almiron advanced it to Matias Galarza, who cut inside off the wing with real menace. And Galarza slid a perfect ball into the path of Julio Enciso, who arrived at exactly the right moment and headed it past a helpless Manuel Neuer. 1-0, Paraguay. Against the run of possession, completely with the run of play. But look closer at that goal, because it reveals the flaw that would haunt Germany all night. When Paraguay broke, Germany were not careful with the ball in the middle of the pitch, and they were far too slow to shift back into their defensive shape. The moment they lost possession, there was a gap, a hesitation, a collective failure to react. And a well-drilled team like Paraguay only needs that gap once. This was the vulnerability that had been hiding underneath all that comfortable possession. Germany were so committed to controlling the ball, so structured an attack, that when the ball turned over, they were caught flat and unbalanced. Enciso ran into a space that should never have existed. And a team that had barely threatened the German goal for 40 minutes suddenly led the match. That is the danger of dominating without scoring. You invite exactly this. You push bodies forward, you commit to the attack, and you leave the back door open for one clean break. Paraguay took their one chance. Germany had spent 40 minutes failing to take any of theirs. It was the perfect encapsulation of the whole German problem. All the ball, all the talent, all the control, and one moment of carelessness that undid all of it. The players trudged off at halftime a goal down, and the questions were already swirling. How do you break down a team that refuses to come out? Where does the goal come from? Who is going to be the one to change this game? For a brief, hopeful moment after the break, it looked like they had found the answer. Germany came out for the second half with more urgency, and it paid off quickly. In the 54th minute, Florian Wirtz, finally finding a yard of space, whipped a ball into the box. It found the head of Kai Havertz, who produced a moment of real quality, a deft, flicked header that beat Orlando Gil and dropped into the net. Aim on! The German bench erupted, and for the first time all night, you could feel belief flooding back. But here's the uncomfortable truth about that equalizer. It came from a rare Paraguay mistake, not from Germany finally cracking the code, switching off just enough for Havertz to steal in. It was the one lapse in an otherwise flawless defensive performance, and Germany, to their credit, pounced on it. The problem was, they never managed to create another moment like it. You might think the equalizer would change everything, that the goal would break the dam, that Paraguay would tire, that Germany would surge. It did not happen, because Paraguay did the single most impressive thing a defensive team can do. They conceded and they did not panic. They did not abandon the plan. They did not chase the game or throw bodies forward. They simply reset, reformed their block, and went right back to what had worked. And Germany, once again, found themselves staring at that same wall. The same compact shape, the same lack of space. The same problem they had failed to solve in the first half was still sitting there, unsolved, in the second. For the rest of normal time, it was more of the same. German possession, Paraguayan resistance, chances that never quite materialized, and a growing sense that this German team simply did not have another gear to shift into. When Plan A stopped working, there was no Plan B. There was just more Plan A repeated, hoping for a different result. Even the substitutions failed to change the picture. Nagelsmann turned to his bench, looking for a spark, for fresh legs, for anyone who could unlock the door. But the fresh players ran into the same wall as the ones they replaced. There was no tactical tweak that suddenly created space. No change of shape that pulled Paraguay apart. The problem was not tired legs. The problem was structural, and no single substitution could fix what the whole plan could not. The match went to extra time, and that is when the cruelty really began. In the 105th minute, Germany thought they had won it. A corner swung in from Nathaniel Brown. Jonathan Tah, the towering center back, rose highest and powered a header into the net. The German players wheeled away in celebration. After all that frustration, all that grinding, all that toil against an immovable object, they had finally found the breakthrough at the death. And then the celebration froze. VAR was reviewing the goal. The replay showed contact in the 6-yard box. Waldemar Anton, another German defender, was judged to have blocked and impeded Paraguay's goalkeeper Orlando Gil as the corner came in, preventing him from getting to the ball. The referee went to the pitch side monitor. He looked, and he ruled the goal out. To this day, that decision is fiercely debated. Yes, there was contact on Gil, but it looked like the kind of routine jostling that happens on almost every single corner in professional football. Bodies bump, players lean, keepers get nudged. If that is a foul, then a huge percentage of set-piece goals should never stand. For German players, coaches, and fans, that call was an injustice, and it will be argued about for a very long time. But here is the harder truth, the one German supporters may not want to hear. That disallowed goal was not the reason Germany went out. It was a symptom of the deeper disease. Because a team that had been more clinical, more incisive, more dangerous across those 120 minutes would never have needed a contested extra-time header to save them. Germany's expected goals for the entire match came to around 1.49. For a side with that much talent, against a team that barely attacked over 2 full hours of football, that is a damning number. Paraguay, by contrast, sat at around 0.42. They created almost nothing. And they still took Germany all the way, because Germany could not turn all that control into clear, repeatable chances. The VAR call was heartbreaking, but it only mattered because everything else Germany did was not good enough to make it irrelevant. And that brings us to the deepest problem of all, the one that had been lurking all tournament. Germany did not have a killer. Look at the way this team was built up front and the flaw becomes obvious. Kai Havertz, a wonderfully talented footballer, was being asked to lead the line as a false 9, a role that is not his natural home. Nick Woltemade, the tall Newcastle striker, offered a physical presence but had endured a mixed debut season and looked better dropping deep than leading the charge. There was no ruthless, natural, box-haunting number 9. No player whose entire game is built around punishing exactly the kind of low-block Paraguay set up. For years, Germany has been searching for that striker and failing to find one. Niklas Füllkrug, a traditional target man, did not even make the squad after a barren season in Italy. And so Nagelsmann was left trying to break down a packed defense with a collection of creators and hybrids, brilliant in build-up, but Musiala stood with his hands on his hips, staring at nothing. And on the other side, Paraguay's players wept with joy. a nation that had never won a World Cup knockout game, in this manner celebrating the greatest night many of them would ever know. Orlando Gil, the goalkeeper who had never even played for a club outside of Paraguay, was the hero. 6 saves in the game, 2 more in the shootout. An entire German attack worth hundreds of millions of dollars turned away by a keeper almost nobody had heard of a week earlier. And here is the thing, it was not luck. Gil had quietly built a reputation as a penalty stopper. Only weeks before the World Cup, he had saved 2 spot kicks in a shootout for his club side against River Plate. The year before, he had pulled off a decisive save on another shootout in a cup tie. This was a goalkeeper who lived for exactly these moments, and on the biggest stage of his life, he delivered the performance of a career. Germany walked into a shootout against a specialist and never knew it. So how do you actually sum up what went wrong for Germany? Because it was not just one thing. It was a chain of failures, each one feeding the next. It began with tactics. Germany had no way to break down a disciplined low block. Their possession was slow and sideways. They could not switch play quickly enough to unbalance Paraguay, and they could not dribble through the congestion. When Plan A of patient possession failed, there was no Plan B to turn to. They just kept doing the same thing and hoping. It continued with structure. The goal they conceded was born from carelessness in midfield and a slow reaction when the ball turned over, a defensive fragility hidden underneath all that control. And the total absence of a natural clinical striker meant that even when they did work an opening, there was often no one built to finish it. And it ended with psychology. The proud penalty record, gone. The 2 missed spot kicks, the decisive skied effort from a center back under unimaginable pressure. A team that used to own these moments suddenly looked like they were terrified of them. But zoom out, and the most uncomfortable truth of all comes into focus. This was not a disappointment for Germany. Group stage in 2018, group stage in 2022, and now the first knockout hurdle in 2026. At no point since lifting the trophy in 2014 has this nation looked genuinely close to winning a major tournament again. The names change. The coaches change. Joachim Löw gave way to Hansi Flick, who gave way to Julian Nagelsmann, but the outcome keeps rhyming. Early exits, painful nights, soul-searching in the Federation, and the same haunting questions, asked again and again. Is the coach the problem? Is the talent pipeline broken? Why does a nation this rich in football history keep producing squads that cannot finish the job? And it is not only the World Cups. Even the European Championships, where Germany have looked slightly healthier, tell a story of falling short. A round of 16 exit at Euro 2020. A quarterfinal defeat on home soil at Euro 2024. Losing to eventual champion Spain in the dying moments of extra time. That home tournament was supposed to be the reawakening, the proof that Nagelsmann had turned the corner. Instead, it became another near miss. Another almost. And then there is the history in this part of the world specifically. Germany have long struggled in North America, dating all the way back to a disappointing 1994 World Cup on these same shores. The ghosts were already here waiting for them. Paraguay did not beat Germany by being better on the ball. They did not outpossess them, or outpass them, or out-talent them. They beat Germany by being organized, disciplined, and mentally tougher, by having a clear identity and executing it to perfection. By knowing exactly who they were and refusing to be anything else. Their captain said afterward that they had to be Paraguay more than ever, that if Germany wanted to beat them, they were going to have to sweat blood for it. Germany could not, and maybe that is the lesson buried in this whole painful night. In modern football, talent alone is not enough. Possession alone is not enough. A famous badge and a glorious history count for absolutely nothing once the whistle blows. What matters is a plan, the ruthlessness to execute it, and the nerve to hold on when everything is on the line. Paraguay had all three. Germany, for all their gifts, did not. The four-time champions flew home to face another long, hard look in the mirror. Another inquest. Another off-season of difficult conversations about the direction of German football. And somewhere in Asunción, an entire country celebrated a goalkeeper who plays his club football at home and a group of defenders who simply refuse to break. That is the story of what went wrong for Germany against Paraguay. A tactical dead end, a structural flaw exposed, a psychological collapse when it mattered most, and a decade of decline that a 5-1 underdog held up for the whole world to see. Drop a comment and let me know. Was it the missing striker or the shootout nerves that really sent Germany home? Like and subscribe for more breakdowns of the biggest stories in football, and I'll see you in the next one.